So once a month, Princess Peach and I, we go to a homeless center, and we share stories from around the world. And sometimes they're fables, sometimes they're legends, sometimes they're based on a true story. Today was one of those days where I just was so humbled and blessed from the teaching time. I told a story from the Congo, and this is kind of my embellishment of the story. It's told by many different people, so I've heard different renditions, and this is what I told them today. So there was this man and woman who fell in love, and they lived in this village, and they enjoyed walking together and talking and enjoying each other's company. They were so happy when they were with one another, and the village was very happy for them. All of the village worked together to prepare their hut, and the women were taking leaves from the trees and setting them in the sun and drying them out so that the hut would be ready for them when it was time for them to get married. And they couldn't wait because they loved being together. Well, the wedding came and everyone celebrated, and they moved into their hut. And they loved that they were together all the time. But one day, they got in a fight inside their hut. And it was a really bad fight. And they started to forget how much they liked each other, how much they enjoyed time together. They forgot in the moment that they loved one another. The man was so angry. He ran out of the hut and he just wanted to destroy something because he just felt awful inside. So when he ran out of the hut, he just looked up, and the very first thing he saw was the roof of his hut. And he began to tear the leaves off the roof of his hut. He was pulling them off and throwing them on the ground. She came out of the hut and she was in shock. She couldn't believe he was tearing the leaves off their roof. Because in their culture, to tear the leaves off the roof, that's saying, I don't want to be married to you anymore. I want a divorce. And this broke her heart. And as she watched him tearing leaf after leaf, she started to remember how much she loved him, how much she enjoyed being with him. She remembered that he was the best storyteller in their village, and she loved listening to him sing, even though he sang off key. She didn't want to fight with him anymore. And then she looked around, and she noticed that all the villagers in their village were starting to watch. And she knew if she said something, they would think it's her fault. So she didn't say anything. And he kept pulling the leaves off their hut. He turned and he looked around when he saw her come out, and he noticed that other villagers were watching too. And he thought, well, if I say something, they're going to think I'm at fault. So he stayed silent too. And they just kind of sat there for a moment as he kept ripping them off, and she just watched as the villagers watched. And then an idea came to her. And she said really loud, "That's all. That's the only leaves we need. They're the dirty ones. Let's take them now, and we'll go down to the river and we'll wash them off." And she, without looking at him to see if he was listening, she started to pick up the leaves and went down to the river and started to wash the leaves in the river. And he looked at her and he thought about what she said. And he got up and he picked up leaves and he went and he squatted down beside her with their feet in the water, kind of shoulder to shoulder, and they were rinsing off their leaves. And before you knew it, they kind of touched shoulders. And then he looked at her with that look that he only looked at her with. And she knew he was flirting with her. And then they started laughing. And then they were having fun washing their leaves. And all the villagers were watching as they washed the leaves. And when they were done, they picked them up and they went and laid them in the sun so they could dry out. And they went back into their hut happy. Well, that night, in all the huts in the village, conversations started to happen. Maybe we should go and take our dirty leaves and wash them in the river too. And they did. And the moral of the story is, we all could wash off our leaves sometimes. So as you listen to the story, what did you learn from this couple? How did their communication help their marriage or hurt their marriage? How could we apply these truths to our life today? So as I shared it, I had the blessing of having a young couple that just happened to show up today and said, we don't know why we're here, but we're glad we came and we got to hear this story. It's so much fun to tell stories. Shalom, y'all.